Before the Avengers assembled, before the billion-dollar box office records, before the MCU became a global phenomenon that we know today, there was a bit of a gamble. A movie starring a B-list Marvel character, directed by an unproven filmmaker, led by by an actor Hollywood nearly gave up on. This is the story of Iron Man, a movie that launched the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the film that saved Robert Downey Jr.'s career. What's up? Welcome back to the reviews, and in this first installment, this is my first episode of The Road to Avengers Doomsday, and it all begins here. And it's officially titled The Road to Avengers Doomsday, Part 1, Iron Man. To understand why Iron Man mattered, we need to understand where Marvel was before 2008. In the late 90s to early 2000s, Marvel Comics was in really big trouble. They were almost bankrupt, and in order to survive this, they sold off the film rights to most of their popular characters. Spider-Man went off to Sony Pictures, which would get a movie from starting off in 2002. The X-Men and the Fantastic Four went straight to 20th Century Fox and would spawn some films that some were good and others are bad. Meanwhile, Hulk was bounced like a pinball machine into different studios. And as for Iron Man, he wasn't considered valuable. To the general public, Tony Stark was a nobody, a second-tier hero with no granted audience. So Marvel did something unheard of. They decided to make movies themselves. And this was the birth of Marvel Studios. If this movie had failed, Marvel Studios would collapse before it even began. Casting Tony Stark was the biggest risk of all. Marvel didn't want a safe traditional movie star. They wanted someone who was Tony Stark, someone that almost looked like the character. Charismatic, flawed, self-destructive, brilliant. Director Jon Favreau had one person in mind, and that, my friends, was Robert Downey Jr. And Hollywood said, absolutely not. Before the early 2000s, Robert Downey Jr. was known less for talent and more into trouble. He was arrested a lot. He had massive trouble behind his back, and insurance companies were refusing to cover him after what everything he's been doing. Studios saw a liability. Even though he was a phenomenal actor, his career was hanging by a thread. But Jon Favreau himself saw something very different. Downey wasn't just playing Tony Stark. He was Tony Stark, a genius who had nearly destroyed himself and was trying to rebuild. Marvel Studios took no chances studio would. They cast Robert Downey Jr. His contract, low pay, strict behavior clauses, and constant supervision. If Downey did screw up one or all of that, his career would be down under. Iron Man did succeed because it was safe. It succeeded because it wasn't. The script was often unfinished, the dialogue was improved, scenes were rewritten on the fly. Jon Favreau encouraged actors to play off each other naturally. This is why the movie feels different from other superhero movies at the time. Tony Stark talks facts, jokes constantly, and deflects with humor. This allowed Robert Downey Jr. to do some of his acting. It wasn't just that. It was just Downey being himself. And I find that pretty interesting. Iron Man introduced something revolutionary. A superhero who was arrogant, a superhero made mistakes in a movie that didn't take itself too serious. This wasn't a god. This wasn't a symbol. This was a man in a cave building a weapon and realizing he was on the wrong side. This movie is not just an origin story. It's about accountability. Tony Stark himself starts as a weapons dealer who profits a war from his company of Stark Industries, and by the end he's forced to confront the consequences of his legacy. This theme, power, responsibility, and unintended consequences would become the backbone of the entire MCU. And it all starts right here. Superhero movies before Iron Man had one rule: never reveal your secret identity. So when Tony Stark steps up to the press and says, "I am Iron Man," it broke the genre. That single line told audiences, these movies will be different. No secret identities, no status dual resets, actions have consequences. That moment changed the entire superhero cinema forever. And then came the scene that wrote history in all things. Nick Fury, the Avengers Initiative. At the time, audiences didn't fully understand what they were seeing, but Marvel was planting a seed, a shared universe, connected stories, a cinematic experiment no studio have ever done at this scale. And Iron Man was the foundation of this universe. When Iron Man was released in May of 2008, it was a massive success. Critics praised it, audiences loved it, and Robert Downey Jr. became a star again, this time for real. Hollywood saw no longer see RDJ as a risk. They see him as a face of a franchise. Iron Man did just save his career. It defined his legacy. And over the next decade, Tony Stark would become the emotional core of the MCU. So you may be wondering why this film still matters. Iron Man wasn't just a movie where the MCU began. It's where the heart was forged. A story about redemption, risk, and believing people when no one else will. Without this movie, we wouldn't have massive franchises like there were no Avengers, none of the movies and stuff. Just a spark, and it ignited that well. Next time on the road to Doomsday, we will continue the Marvel universe. By a few days from now, I'll be talking about the Incredible Hulk, and I'm looking forward to talk about that video to you guys. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe to Nate Reviews, and let me know in the comments, what does Iron Man mean to you? Until next time, I am Nate Santiago, and thanks for watching. Signing off. Ciao.